Hi, and welcome to another live Q&A from the Coronavirus Yorkshire Business Support Group. We're live streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, and in the Facebook group. If you're watching this on replay, please put hashtag replay so that I get a good idea of how this is being watched. Today, we have a fantastic person with us, Steve Phillip, head of mission at Champion Health, but also with his other business linked to success, a LinkedIn expert and social sales trainer. Welcome, Steve. Good to have you here.
Hello, Johnny. Good to see you again.
It's been far too long, especially with Corona. We sort of cross paths a lot as sort of LinkedIn social media and LinkedIn training and speaking. We sort of see each other at events, but obviously with no events really going on right now, it's been far too long. You live up north. You live in Panel towards Harrogate, but the accent is definitely not northern.
How long is this
from originally, and how did you land up here?
How long is this interview, Johnny? Wow. Okay. Let's give you the shortened version. Parentage originally from Yorkshire, I have to say, from Skipton, which they then moved to Lancashire. Father joined the police force in Bedfordshire in the 1950s because he was too short to be a Lancashire policeman, apparently. Famously handcuffed to Ronnie Biggs, the train robber, I have to say, after the arrest. So there we are, claim to fame. So brought up in East Anglia, really, Huntingdon, Cambridge, that kind of area. Eventually moved north to go and work in the hotel industry in the Lake District, where I met my first wife there. And we lived for some years over in Morecambe in the northwest before emigrating to Canada in the early 90s, where we lived for several years. Then came back, and the short version of the story is that I got divorced and through work moved to Harrogate. So no fixed abode, really.
Canada. I didn't realize you were in Canada. How long were you in Canada for?
Well, 92 to 97. So,
right.
In the glorious prairies of Winnipeg, or affectionately known as Winterpeg.
And you don't think you'd want to go back there one day?
I know I don't want to go back there. Lovely people. No, seriously, we had a lovely time. Winnipeg is, let's just say it's not on the tourist destinations if you're going to travel to Canada ordinarily. So minus 48 in the winter before the wind chill can get a little chilly when you're sending the kids to school. So
So you started out in the automotive industry. You were selling for working with Saab and Volvo and General Motors and Honda. I think you did that for about 13 years.
Yeah, well, slightly longer, really, probably in terms of the total career path, but then moved into consultancy in that industry. Yeah.
And that then led to, I mean, it was in a sales role. Is that right?
Yeah, sales leadership. So initially in a sales role and progressed fairly quickly in the 80s to sales management roles, and then ran dealerships myself in sort of latter years, really, particularly when I was over in North America.
And you found yourself on LinkedIn in 2008.
Yeah, I mean,
having a play.
Well, it was interesting because as we moved forward and come back to the UK, I then almost immediately saw an opportunity to take a consultancy role with a training company that was in automotive. That led me to follow the ops director from that company, who formed a leadership and management training company, of which I ultimately became a director of until 2008, when I left to set up my own coaching practice around personal branding, really how we as professionals communicate who we are and what we do. And I remember having we leased an office in Leeds at Wellington Crescent in central Leeds there, and shared it with a couple of business associates. And one day, one of those business associates, Pete, walked in and said, "Steve, I know you're looking for new clients, B2B clients for your coaching practice. You know what you need to be doing." I said, "What's that, Pete?" He said, "You need to be on LinkedIn." Well, I just said, "What's that, Pete?" So that was my knowledge as a middle-aged, definitely not a millennial, back in 2008. And I kind of did what everybody did and still does to some degree, whacked a profile up there, left it alone, didn't do anything with it. And more by luck than judgment, got a couple of inquiries to do business. And I thought, well, maybe there's a bit more to it. Fast track 12 months into 2009 August, I co-founded Link to Success.
and now showing and teaching people how to sell using LinkedIn ultimately, and convert and create communities. And
yeah, I mean, B2B clients predominantly. So there'll be clients from FedEx to Honda, to Toyota and Harley Davidson and Deloitte at the one end of the scale, through to many SME owner-driven businesses as well. It's essentially all looking to do two things really. That's raise their brand profile, of course, and attract new clients. So how do you do that in a professional way online? Because it is very different to traditional selling, which often doesn't work on a platform, as you know, such as LinkedIn.
Yeah. Everything changed 7 or 8 months ago, December 2019.
Yeah. So August last year, celebrated 10 years, linked to success, successful business, good year, doing well. About to sit down with a consultant to kind of map out the next 5 years to an exit strategy of some kind. And that work was about to kick off in January. I was on December the 4th working with a client, a large automotive group, as it turns out, in the Midlands. It was the International Motors Group. Delivered a session, interesting enough, on Facebook that day, not on LinkedIn. Went really well, fairly intense day, as they always are. Walked out to my car, got in the car to drive the kind of 3 hours back up from Solihull to Harrogate, and literally as I put my phone into the dashboard there, the name Charlotte appeared on the phone, which was my son's girlfriend, my son Jordan. Answered the phone as I would have done any other time. She didn't always call me regularly, but at that moment, I received a call that kind of changed my life completely, as she eventually managed to explain that she was at Jordan's house and he'd taken his own life, and she found him. And that was the start of my life part 2, I suppose, really.
Yeah, it must have turned your world upside down and turned everyone that knows Jordan or knew Jordan completely around. And since then, you've sort of found a path with. You've become extremely passionate about mental health. It's fairly obvious to see that. And I think what's been really good, certainly from my point of view, is seeing you out talking about things. And I guess, well, you tell me, how important it is to talk, and how you've found comfort with that, I guess.
Yeah, I think to kind of put a bit of context around this, Jordan had episodes of depression, first diagnosed in 2015. And, maybe some of the people listening to this can relate to what I'm about to say, because around in his very close family network, although Jordan was a little bit of a loner himself, would keep people at arm's length. He had his mother, my ex-wife, who'd been a senior mental health nurse for many years, and his girlfriend Charlotte, that was living and studying predominantly in Sheffield, but staying a lot with him, particularly in those last few weeks where he was obviously struggling, but she was just about to qualify as a clinical forensic psychologist. So two very knowledgeable people kind of there. As for me, I didn't understand mental health, depression. Jordan was having a tough time. Yes, we were messaging frequently. Yes, he was saying, I'm really struggling sleeping at the moment, Dad. To me, all those things meant nothing other than a lad struggling to sleep and not doing very well. So firstly, yes, I've become passionate about this, but I've also had to learn very rapidly about what constitutes poor mental health. What are the signs? What does it look like? Because I have to say, I was one of those people that it didn't register how significant the signs were at the time. Now I look back retrospectively and go, that message, that WhatsApp message, that text, that conversation, clearly there were signs that if I'd been educated and understood what I was looking for, I would have seen and then perhaps reacted and behaved very differently, really.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about. I think Jordan texted you or WhatsApped you the night before, and you were, you'd just come off a speaking slot, and I think, I think you were talking, you both sort of agreed, let's talk tomorrow type of thing. And
yeah, I mean, I knew he was struggling in those last few days. I mean, we all knew he was struggling more. And ultimately, we learned that he said that bout of depression was much worse than he'd experienced before, because he'd successfully, with medication, kind of come through. But we now know that he was really struggling and had been for many years. But he, as many people tend to do, because, alluding to your point earlier, we don't like to talk, particularly men. We don't like to talk about any illnesses, but particularly mental health. So Jordan would protect us. That's what we realize now. He was protecting a lot of people by not talking about it. So yeah, that evening before, I'd driven from a training session down to the Midlands, brought myself into the hotel there, and I was a little late. Just got downstairs to the restaurant and literally messaged him to say, look, I'm just having a beer and a bite to eat. Sorry, it's a bit late, but can we have a chat afterwards? And to which his reply, which I've actually shared, I know this was quite impactful at the time, the actual part of that WhatsApp conversation on a LinkedIn post, and he just said, okay, Dad, no, it sounds like you've had a long day, but look, I'm feeling pretty tired myself. Is it okay if we leave it tonight, and maybe catch up another time, or tomorrow, or whatever he'd said there? And of course, that was the night before. So it's you think of moments like that, and now, and I can just feel it now. It's pretty tough.
I can a tiny bit relate. I lost a close friend at the age of 16. We were on a camp at the time, at like a kids camp, and he asked to go for a walk. It must have been midnight, and I was being good, and we'd told we had to stay in our tents. So I was like, no, we're not allowed to go for a walk. And I woke up to find out he'd committed suicide that night. So I believe I was the last person to speak to him. So to a tiny extent, I can relate it. So it's just truly awful. And but you mentioned that you wrote this LinkedIn post, and it was, from my point of view, it was really great to see you talking out loud, and the response you get. I mean, you must have been blown away with the response. You've had over, I think, over 1,000 comments on there. To see a LinkedIn post like that is, I mean, I read it, I cried through it. It was in some ways heart-wrenching, but also beautiful to read. It pulled so many different emotions.
It was. No, I was surprised, particularly as it's a LinkedIn article, and you and I know the way all these algorithms work. If you post an article, if one person sees it, you've done pretty well. Where a regular post, of course, you can share a fluffy kitten and that'll do extremely well. But for an article to have done that well blew me away. But it wasn't so much how well it did.
No, of course.
And I have to say, kind of, because some people might say, well, because this was 3 weeks after. Okay, we've not had a funeral, not had anything by then, and I'm sure there'll be people asking, well, how did you manage to sit down and write an article and publish this on LinkedIn? And I have to say that for me, because writing and publishing is something that I've done for a long time, with all that had gone on and the issues with the coroner's office and the police and some of the mistakes that were happening and the frustration and just the pure rawness of it all, I wanted to write this down, and I knew I had to document it. And it was Big Ian, our good friend Big Ian, who said to me, make sure you're writing down what's happening. He said, you will want this one day. And I thought, well, LinkedIn's the obvious place. So I started to write it. And then as I finished it, I said, why am I publishing in this? What is the reason behind this? Is it for me? Is it for other people? I have to say my finger sort of hovering over the publish button for some time. And then I thought, well, look, if it does help one person, because when I reread it again, I thought, no, there's stuff in here that if this stops someone doing this because of the huge horror that it leaves behind and the trauma that they won't really fully appreciate. Although I now know that, to be honest, when you're at that point, the best reason in the world isn't going to register with you not to do it. You're just so detached from anything that we would call rational behavior at that point, and you're in so much pain that we can't imagine either, that I've subsequently learned about that. Yeah, even knowing what you're going to do and what that will cause to your family and friends, the pain is just so intense, and you've got to get away from it. Jordan wrote that in his letter to us. This is my only way out to escape, the pain that's literally showing me no way out. That was one of the lines in his note. And you think, God, what on earth must that pain be like? So when I did publish it, I thought, well, if it makes a difference to one person, and then of course, as you know, the rest kind of was history in terms of the people that got in touch, from people that were contemplating suicide themselves, to those bereaved by suicide, to clinicians that wrote and thanked me for articulating this in a way that theoretically they'd never been able to do, or academically not been able to do, to the likes of people like Ariana Huffington in the States from the Huffington Post messaging me one morning on an email and just saying, I've just read your stuff and love to kind of feature you on the Thrive global network that I'm doing. So it was quite astonishing, really, the response that came from that.
Yeah, and I think, well, actually, we've just had a comment from Jonathan Sapir, and I was thinking exactly what he's just written, which is, as a dad, you can relate to these things, and it's important, like you've said, if it can help one person, it helps us all reflect and reconsider, and and like you've said, Steve, it's very easy for us to say, well, that's just. That's a teenager, or that's 30-year-old behavior, or he's just tired, or whatever it might be. And I've done it myself with my own teenager, and just sort of put it down to he's a teenager. But actually, it's really important to reflect and ask questions and really get under the skin of certain things, because there could be something else.
I think you're right. I mean, we can look back at Jordan's teenage years as the moody teenager, and both him and his mum. We've had conversations now going, kind of when we look back at certain events in his life now and times, we're kind of looking at those through different spectacles now. Yeah, really. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but we are looking at it from a different viewpoint and questioning whether those were early stage signs of issues that Jordan was having and struggling, as a teenager, and then going on to university. So yeah, it's talking about it is so critical, but it's such a difficult thing to do, and I think it was Jonathan, was it, whose comments just
Jonathan Sapir.
When he said, look, there's so much more support and acceptance, thankfully, and there is. I think one of the things that has happened hugely is that awareness has increased significantly, and the government would probably pat themselves on the back to some degree for being involved in that in recent years, and so we've ticked the box. But the challenge is, awareness is one thing. Okay, we all know coronavirus is out there. What we actually need to know now is, how do I deal with it? How does it affect me? What am I supposed to do about it? And mental health is the same. All right, I'm more aware. I've got teenage kids myself, or I've got a young lad in his 30s or a young girl. Where do I go? Where do I go for help? What do I do? And that's the challenge now. The real challenge is for someone, particularly in a distressed state, is knowing where to go that's right for them, other than straight to a GP, which is usually, A&E, GP, Samaritans, first port of call. And then there's this plethora of different, very good privately run organizations, some very good NHS support, but it's a minefield trying to work out how to get there if you're in not a good position mentally to be able to work that out for yourself.
Yeah. In fact, I was even just reading. It was Jordan's birthday a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? The 11th. And I was reading the post that you wrote because you started the Jordan Legacy. Just tell us about the Jordan Legacy, actually, and where that's come from. And
it's interesting that really, John, because two significant developments, I suppose, have been the Jordan Legacy and my role with Champion Health. Now, as you say, as head of mission there, my business linked to success in LinkedIn consultancy has taken very much a back seat. I'm still doing little bits on request or on demand, if you like. But the Jordan Legacy was born out of conversations with the family and I need to create something. And, a good friend told me that, you end up in these situations going one of two ways. You either sit on the sofa with a bottle or you get up and create and do something. And the actual term is actually known as post-traumatic growth. There's an actual term for it where you end up, in many cases, becoming a very different person, achieving more than you would have done before the event. So, very sadly, but consequentially, you can end up actually, doing some pretty wonderful and amazing things and different things as a result of trauma. But it's set up as a kind of charitable organization. I'm just waiting to kind of formalize its charitable status as such. But it was a way that I wanted to create something online to tell Jordan's story. The legacy, we've called it very deliberately, so people understood who Jordan was, and that we could share other stories on there. But ultimately that we could signpost and provide help and guidance around mental well-being and suicide prevention. So it's in its very early stages. I get frustrated that we haven't made the progress that we should have done. And then it's only when people stop and remind me and say, you do realize it's only 7.5 months since you lost Jordan. And I kind of have to pull myself back a bit. So yeah, a lot to be done there, moving very much towards the suicide prevention focus increasingly now with people that are partnering with me and coming on board. Yeah, just really a site to direct people to help and provide some guidance if they've been impacted by poor mental health and suicide. Really,
and you're also raising money. You've got, what's the vision? Where do you hope it could go one day?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that the type of work I was doing was going to change. I knew that I wouldn't be carrying on with LinkedIn training indefinitely. I'd kind of lost the motivation to a large degree, understandably.
Sorry to interrupt. Even though you're extremely successful and got some amazing stories on some of the things you've done for clients. Some of you go in, do some LinkedIn training. 2 weeks later, they've got was it a £500,000 contract, or maybe it wasn't that high?
Yeah, it was. There was the accountancy firm, the engineering firm, pretty well within a week. There wasn't it, £500,000 contract from a client in Brazil.
I mean,
yeah.
How can you stop doing that? You're not allowed to stop doing that.
I don't know, but hey, look, one thing that changes is money no longer becomes important. Success no longer becomes important. I've just come out of a car had a big Mercedes on the drive for ages. I just tuned that in for a little, I should say sporty, but a little Mazda 3. Firstly, I'm not driving anywhere very much these days, but kind of a lot of those things that were really important to me aren't anymore. So that drive for that success as such has gone. So I knew I was going to do something different. I knew it would be in speaking, as a speaker, conference speaker and business speaker. So it's been a passion of mine. I knew I wanted to continue to do that, but with a very different message. Obviously, during lockdown, that's been restricted. So my voice is predominantly through LinkedIn now. But as time goes forward, there'll be, consultancy work that I'll do and speaking through there. But ultimately, the vision increasingly is moving the Jordan Legacy towards very clearly providing help and support and training and guidance with partnerships, specifically around suicide prevention. And I think that's become very clear to me probably only in the last couple of weeks. Because up until this point, I had this vision of almost a catch-all for social isolation, mental well-being, confidence building, suicide prevention. And it was kind of everything we knew Jordan had experienced we kind of, as a family and friends, said, right, we want to tackle all this. Well, that's great if you've got a team of about 30 people doing that. But now, after a period of time and reflection, say, where should it focus really? Where can we have the most impact? Then that will be very specifically looking at suicide prevention. And I know that incorporates everything else that's behind there, but I think we'll see the platform shift very much towards that being the key.
Yeah, I think
the key message there.
And I think it'll have much more of an impact. And just like your sales trainer in you and your LinkedIn trainer in you knows that the more targeted and niche something becomes, the more impact you're going to have. And ultimately, if you know what you're after there is to prevent another suicide. And if you can do that, then you know that you're going in the right direction, aren't you? I guess so.
Yeah, very much.
I fully appreciate that. You then had an encounter with Harry Bliss from Champion Health. I mean, we've talked about Champion Health. You're now head of mission there.
Yes, head of mission control or something. I'm told just to make up my own title. I thought, well, that's impressive. Yeah, I mean, this is again, it's a lot of synchronicity happened. Someone who, I'm not a religious person, and definitely not someone who's necessarily particularly spiritual at all. But I have to say, there's been a lot of synchronicity taking place in the last several months that I can't really explain. But as the word got out on LinkedIn.
I'm going to interrupt again slightly, because you say that you're not religious and you're not spiritual, but as I said, I was reading your blog around Jordan's birthday, and you really do hope that there's going to be, more to life and life after life, and you'll get to spend time with Jordan again. And was there a football reference, and what was the I don't even know what the Hooties were.
Hootie and the Blowfish.
Is that what it was? Sorry.
Yeah. We went to see Hootie and the Blowfish in Leeds and saw a concert in October. One of Jordan's favourite bands when we were over in Canada and living there, and they're an American band. But we went to see them in October together. So and the Gooners, Arsenal.
That is Arsenal. Yeah,
that's for debatable, but yeah. Yeah, but look,
so I think there is a bit of spiritualization.
Well, look, and I won't go into this now, but that event that you're talking about, and even the most hardened skeptic, which I consider myself to be, couldn't help but sort of draw some kind of conclusions or thought processes around the fact that it was Jordan's birthday on the 11th, and we went over to Morecambe, where his grave is, and we spent some time there. It was an odd day because it's also Jordan's sister's youngest birthday that day as well. So Jordan's nephew Samuel had his 4th birthday the same day. So you can imagine what a kind of mixed day that was. So we went through all that, all the tears, the sadness, and then playing with a little 4-year-old on his birthday, and then driving home to kind of collect your thoughts. And there on the doormat as I got in was a parcel. Small parcel addressed to me from the coroner's office. I knew what it was because, in fairness, the coroner's office had phoned me earlier the week to say that finally they were able to release the original copy of Jordan's suicide letters that were contained in a notebook. And there'd been a lot of debate in the family as to what this notebook was. His mum and his sister thought it was the notebook that it was. His girlfriend said, "No, I saw it. I don't think it was." So as you've seen in the post there, I have to say, when I got home Saturday, I didn't open the parcel. I couldn't open it Sunday. It was Monday lunchtime. I thought, I think I'm in a bit of headspace where I can do this, and I opened it up, and there was this shimmering book that if you turned it in different light colors of the rainbow and the spectrum were shown, and imprinted on the front of the book, it was a book that his mother and his sister had sent him just a week before. Was kind of behind every cloud is a rainbow or something of that line, and I just smiled at it, and I thought, kind of wished I'd opened it on Saturday. But 7 months and 7 days after Jordan takes his own life, on the 7th of the month, on Jordan's 34th birthday, 3 and 4. Okay, even I'm doing this now, which even now I'm about to smack myself around the head. This book arrives on his birthday. Now, what I won't share with you now are some of the subsequent conversations, and one very long 2.5 hour conversation I've had with a lady since that happened that has made me question my disbelief quite significantly. And yeah, so yeah, I absolutely get what you're saying. And let's just say on the scale, I've maybe just moved up a few notches. And as this lady described, maybe you're on the same journey that I've been on for 20 years as a total atheist originally, she said, and then went on to explain her story and life events, which were quite remarkable. And a lady who I know to be very sound of mind and very black and white kind of individual. But so watch this space.
So I was about to say, watch this space. So the stars further aligned, and I rudely interrupted. You were talking about Champion Health and Harry and how the stars align there, and this head of mission, what exactly that was.
Well, this is fascinating, and in many ways an exciting journey. Not least because I get to work with a bunch of 25-year-olds and pretend I'm young again. But from that first article and the subsequent post that I shared, obviously I mentioned to you before we started the interview that I've received a lot of communications from people, and you must read this book, you must speak to this person, you must connect with that, you must do this interview, and it was really quite overwhelming. But a constant name that came up was Harry's, and then Harry himself reached out and just said, look, I don't know if this is the right time, but at some point I'd really like to meet you. And to kind of put this into a date perspective, this was about 10 days before lockdown, so we must have been early mid-March, I would think, second week of March, wouldn't we? Yeah. So went to meet him at a cafe in Harrogate. Just a funny side issue on this. I hadn't really looked at Harry's LinkedIn profile or his photograph very clearly. And I don't know about you, but the name Harry Bliss kind of conjured up a 1960s Michael Caine movie. I just thought I was going to meet some old guy in a raincoat. And there was this young 26-year-old fresh-faced lad with a laptop, and okay. But very quickly, Harry demonstrated the platform that he and through his father, who's a clinical lead and a psychologist at Sheffield, and his mother that helped him bootstrap the company to get it going, a very successful businesswoman in Sheffield herself. And together with a team of 25 academics and GPs they pulled together, have created what is quite a remarkable, and will be even more remarkable, digital platform to allow employees to take their own personal health and well-being assessments and receive their own personal action plans. And the aggregated data is provided to the company as a report to identify very specific areas of well-being within their organization. And that'll be everything from lifestyle, nutrition, smoking, drinking, sleep, deprivation, those things, to physical issues around musculoskeletal problems, back problems, excuse me, and then mental health around depression, anxiety, and stress levels. And one key area around general energy levels in life generally. Have I got enough energy after work to go and play with the kids? Or what about that 2 o'clock sort of post-lunchtime slump? And let me just take a sip of water. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, please do take a drink.
Yeah. So, and the company is celebrating some fairly major investment that's just launched. I'm meeting with the team for the first time, I have to say, in 4 months physically at a socially distanced garden party at Harry's mother's house. But this young startup company has achieved some remarkable things in the 9 months since it was launched, taken 2 years to develop. We know through conversations directly with some of the clients already that the platform saved 4 lives. We've got actual feedback on that from the companies themselves. So what about the ones we haven't had feedback from? And with the innovation and development that's happening in the next 6 months with a really good quality team of young people, then there's no question in my mind that Champion Health is on the journey to become the market leader probably in this type of platform, and making a huge difference to those companies that are really serious about putting in a well-being strategy and actually give a damn about their employees, to be honest.
Yeah, and especially with coronavirus right now, with remote working and well, the chance of losing jobs and furlough and all sorts of stuff, it will be invigorating a lot of these thoughts. And if organizations weren't taking it seriously, now is the time they really absolutely have to.
Yeah, and it's a big frustration. I have to say, there are a lot of companies doing some great stuff and are really on board with this. But look, we've got this odd situation out there at the moment in the workplace, and that is that we've got increased levels of anxiety and uncertainty right from the top of organizations through to frontline people. So top CEOs, managers, they're all kind of struggling with what's gone on. Where are we going to be in 3 months, 6 months? Time as far as this business is concerned? Where am I going to be as an employee? I'm one of the fortunate ones that hasn't been made redundant, and I think I'm coming back after furlough, but how long will I be there for when the likes of Marks and Spencer's suddenly make a decision at the last minute that they're going to let X number of employees go? So huge amounts of uncertainty, coming back into a job where actually I've been quite used to working from home. Really comfortable with that. And now you're saying I can't do. Why not? Because I've actually been producing probably better work during that time because I've not had the stress of the commute and all that to worry about. So you've got those challenges and issues to kind of deal with, whilst the companies themselves and HR directors are dealing with furlough and other issues and redundancies every day, just trying to keep the business ticking over. But in doing so, have almost become blinded to processes and systems and almost forgotten that there's this huge issue building in the background, that if they don't take care of their people with a really well-developed well-being strategy, they aren't going to have a business.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. But getting that balance right is a real struggle, and that's why I'm beating the drum. That's why I'm so passionate about it. And when I get companies emailing me saying, "I'm really sorry, I couldn't get any really enthusiasm out of the fellow directors because they're busy delivering a service," I just want to drive down there in the car and hammer the door down. Yeah. Or I get a lady, an MD of a very successful housing company in Yorkshire just this week that says, "I absolutely get it. Absenteeism cost this business £134,000 last year. What I'm investing in Champion Health is in her own words, a smidgen." So we've got opposite ends of the scale.
And it's true. And having seen the product, I can see the difference it can make, and the dashboard, being able to see what's going on across your workforce is so invaluable. It's well done to Champion Health for producing something that's that there was a big gap in the market, and it's a very clever system. So I think you're right.
I think one thing just to add to that, John, as well, is it's very mission led, I should say. Dread. Okay. Because a good number of those that work at Champion Health have got their own lived experiences as well, pretty powerful ones like myself. And, we are definitely mission led first, profit led second.
Which is the best way to have a business and an organization. It's authenticity is what counts these days, and that's good to hear. You were talking earlier about how you've been inundated with some of your LinkedIn work recently as well, and I think that's a sign of the times with coronavirus. I think people are starting to come out of this. Well, I think businesses are realizing that they need some help, and realizing that they need to actually, if they want to bring in the revenue, they're going to have to change what they're doing. Is that what you're hearing?
I think it's a good observation, Johnny, because I think for me it was a bit of a barometer that things were shifting and changing, that people were coming out and saying, right, we need to do business again now. So yes, I was really surprised when the inquiries started coming in, given that my LinkedIn profile gives a slight clue that I still do that, but nowhere near what it did before. So yeah, that's been useful. It's something that I'm very comfortable with. Obviously, know what I'm doing. I've done it for many years now, so it's something that I can step back into very, very easily there. But and it's also in many ways not a bad distraction, because when you're living every day around the term suicide and every day around the term depression and anxiety, and to have something sometimes that is not related to that is actually quite welcome. So maybe I'll just keep my hand in a little bit. What do you reckon?
I think, well, I absolutely think you should. What are the things that people are constantly getting wrong with how they use LinkedIn?
Oh, the things they've always got constantly wrong, really, Johnny, is having their wedding photographs on as a profile photograph with the partner's arm cropped out, or this is me up a mountain with 5 of my friends. Guess which one is me? So those fairly common ones. I think the big one is still, and this applies to a lot of senior executives on LinkedIn, is still writing their profile like they're going for their first job when they were 17. It is. They're writing it like a CV. I'm a highly passionate, motivated individual with 25 years. And as a potential client of theirs, I'm reading that going, so what? Why is that of any value to me? Your mother will be impressed if she reads your profile, but actually I'm not. So I think one of the things I'm constantly and have said for years is that unless you are using this as a CV to get a job, but even then you need to be selling the value that you can add to that company, not upfront your track record, then the same applies in sales, is that if I connect with you on LinkedIn and I'm getting X number of connections a day and I have a few milliseconds to kind of consider you, why should I connect with you? Why should I listen to you? What value, and how quickly are you articulating that to me? And clearly, what value do you add to my life and my business? Tell me that, and maybe we can connect and have a conversation. Try and sell to me in the first minute of dropping me a message, and I'm going to ignore you.
Yeah. But there's so many people that still don't realize there's such a huge opportunity on a platform like LinkedIn. There's a huge opportunity, and it's just about how you use it, isn't it? And what you do with it.
So excited last night. I'm working with a new client, a couple of directors of a company. They're a Microsoft partner and deal in tech, and I've been dabbling with LinkedIn, and we're in kind of the third 1 hour session, but we spoke yesterday, and the MD there said 2 things already happened. He said, one is I've just signed terms for a fairly large piece of work this morning that I know the only way that's come to me is via LinkedIn now, and I've been asked to speak at an event that's come directly from the posts that we talked about last week that we've shared. This is already working, he said. So that's exciting to hear that kind of feedback there. So and it's just trying to put yourself in the shoes of those people that might want to buy from you. And I think when you start to do that, you will change how you communicate via LinkedIn, I would suggest.
Yeah. I'll be following the Jordan legacy very closely and look forward to reading more blogs. What are the practical tips that you've got for how you're going to continue to live with this?
Yeah, kind of answers on a postcard, isn't it? Look, it's interesting. I sit here and I can smile and have a laugh and a joke at times, and we do that during the day. And you kind of, lots of people that have been through similar circumstances said, you don't lose that grief or that pain. It is with you every single day. And the thought of Jordan and what happened is there every single minute of every day. I've recognized that now. And what you have to do is you kind of have to kind of grow around it. So it kind of stays there. And you just have to kind of try and work around that. But you are different. There's no question. I'm different in many respects. Outwardly, I can still be that same person to the world, but internally, I'm just a completely, different person from that perspective. But I think equally the point about talking and having a close network of people is as important if you're bereaved by suicide as if you're contemplating it. We're all now going through our own struggles day in, day out. We have the WhatsApp group with Jordan's mum, his sister, his girlfriend, my wife, and I still, which we set up in those very early days. We message every night, every morning through the day as a group. I don't see that changing, to be honest, at all. And so, whatever the situation, whatever you're going through, who are the people that you can, that you feel you can talk to? That could be an organization, that could be an individual. It's worth making a list sometimes to say, well, who are these? Do I have, if I was in that, and the time to do it is now, when your mental health is in a good place, to say, if I ever got in this situation, who would I turn to? Do I have a list of 4 or 5 and how they might be able to help me? If I don't, and I reach that position, then what am I going to do if it's just me? And prevention is what this is all about, the work that I'm doing. And prevention sometimes means to say, why do we take out insurance on our car or our house? We don't like paying for it, but we know, and very often it never happens. So we pay thousands and thousands of pounds in our lives for insurances that we never ultimately end up needing, but we take them out in case. And mental health is the same. I think, we have to take a preventative look to say this could, who'd have told me on December the 4th, when I woke up that morning, that would happen to me that day, that my life would change forever on that day. I was just up and about and off another training session.
Yeah.
So, I was the least prepared probably of anyone really. So I think, the tips would be, make sure you have a network, make sure you know what your own contingency would be if you ever found yourself in a similar position. Now, some people will take that advice now and some will go back to work and it's another day,
Well, hopefully some people actually change their thinking, and start asking the right questions and thinking the right things, and speaking to people. You are truly inspirational. I'll be honest. I've seen you as a speaker many times, going back years, as a sales trainer, as a LinkedIn expert, and you were inspirational then. You've gone up a whole nother level. It's fascinating to keep reading and to keep listening and to keep watching, and the strength that you've got is empowering and impressive. So keep at it, but at the same time, it's good to hear that you're taking a break. I know you're going away for a couple of weeks in August, and that's so important, Steve. You're like me. You're I think a bit of a workaholic.
Yeah, definitely.
Whilst it's distracting, it's also good to have a break as well. So
very much. Looking forward.
Enjoy that break. And if you do want LinkedIn training and you're watching this, just give him a break in August.
Definitely. Yeah. I'll just tell people I'm fully booked. Yeah.
How do we find you, Steve? So there's the mental health side. There's the 3 things. Just talk us through the 3.
Yeah, I mean, everything really. There are websites for each of the sites. LinkedIn, is the obvious place to go. So, with the correct spelling of my name at the bottom of the screen there, you'll find me fairly easily. And on my profile will be all 3, the Jordan Legacy, Champion Health, and Link to Success, the 3 businesses. And then, the website for LinkedIn training, which is Link to Success. .co.uk, and the linked to success is a number 2, and then there's championhealth.co.uk, and then there is the jordanlegacy.com. So they're the 3 sites.
Jonathan's still with us. Great interview. What an inspirational guy. Wishing every success to the
Thank you, Jonathan. That's lovely. Thank you.
And we've had some other comments as well. But thank you very, very much indeed. For those watching, just to remind you, if you want to see more of these, then head over to the Facebook group, the Coronavirus Yorkshire Business Support Group. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, more importantly, to Steve for joining us and sharing.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's been fascinating, and thank you. And my heart is truly with you on your journey, and I'll be watching your spiritual journey as well. From now, that's all. Thanks very much, and we'll see you all soon. Take care.
Thank you, Jonathan.